All right, looks like we're recording. I'll get started. My name is James Pepper. I'm the chair of the Cannabis Control Board. Today is Wednesday, October 29th, 2025. It's 1:03 p.m. and I call this meeting to order. We have some guests on the agenda today, so I'll keep my remarks brief. There has been a fair bit of tragedy in the cannabis industry since our last meeting. I wanted to briefly acknowledge the passing of Keith Griswold. He was a true pioneer and very dedicated to making Vermont a center of excellence. Keith, your vision will be missed. Anyone who's been following the medical use endorsement knows that one of the prerequisites for using that is there must be at least one employee who's received an enhanced training available all regular business hours. We have finalized the curriculum and format for the course and set the date of the initial training, which will be Wednesday, December 3rd. This is a free training for participants. It'll be presented through Microsoft Teams and include live instruction and will be followed by a certification exam. Space is limited at this first training, and we will be prioritizing employees of retail shops that have applied for or received a medical use endorsement. We're going to send out an email to those retailers with instructions for signing their employees up. So keep an eye out for that email. We do intend to rerun this training in mid-January, and we'll accept sign-ups from a broader employee universe. One other issue, we received complaints about retail shops scanning IDs and potentially collecting personally identifying information about customers without their consent. I wanted to remind everyone that Rule 2.8.3 explicitly prohibits collection and retention of personal information without the express permission of the customer. And of course, there's all sorts of other laws outside of our regulations that govern how personally identifying information can be collected and used. So please be mindful of the importance of consumer rights, particularly in this area. Other than that, you just have to approve the minutes. We had our last regular board meeting on September 24th. We had a special meeting on October 2nd where we certified the adoption of our advertising settlement. And then we had two evidentiary hearings on October 8th and the 15th.
So moved.
Seconded.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, moving along. Next up is public comment. Handle this the same way we always do. If you have a comment and would like to, if you'd like to make a comment, please just raise your virtual hand. We'll call on you in the order that you raise them. Then we'll move to folks that join by phone. Looks like Chris Vickers is first.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yep.
Hey, this is Chris from Rootland Cannabis, Hickory, Hash, and Bud, coming to you with a little thing we like to call the pushback. Almost everyone listening here today is employed because many of us have been pushing back for decades. We've been pushing back against federal laws, state laws, and stupid rules to bring us to where we are today, but we still have a long way to go. We're still working on many topics such as public consumption. Anywhere tobacco products can be used, cannabis products should be allowed. We're still trying to get cafes, lounges, and clubs. We need this in Vermont before other states do it before us. We also want to be able to consume in dispensaries themselves. And of course, we're still trying to figure out how to do competitions. No more freaking THC caps. Hold on to your hat, CCB, state legislators, lawyers, and cops. We want to have a huge 21 and over event down on the waterfront with all the Vermont cannabis businesses represented. We also want to be able to give out free samples, free pre-rolls, open dab bars. We don't want to be dealing with these anti-First Amendment advertising laws. We want to be able to advertise any way we like. It's a 21 and over event. We shouldn't be required to get special permission from anyone. So until you all get this together, we're going to be back at this table for a really long time. It's time state legislators get on it. Cannabis is meant to be shared, not always taxed. This is Chris from Rootland with the pushback. We'll stop back in a couple months and see how things are progressing. Take care, and thanks to Mahali for the use of this music. Peace.
All right, thanks, Chris. Dave?
Well, now I want background music. Couple of distinct points today. First, regarding the upcoming presentation on tobacco and retail citing, I think it's important to be clear about both the similarities and the differences between these two markets. And while I do think there are important lessons to be learned from the tobacco space and also from the liquor space, and I do think there are even areas of agreement that the industry can find with public health advocates on this topic. It's really important not to lump cannabis in with tobacco with respect to public health harms in general. Tobacco kills 500,000 Americans a year. Cannabis kills 0 people and has killed 0 people in the history of humanity, right? So let's not be too easily accepting of comparisons that are not valid, and let's just only take the lessons that are applicable. So that's just one. The second is some feedback on some recent actions that the board took, discussion the board took at one of the kind of off-cycle non-meeting meetings. I think it would be beneficial to the entire industry if, when the board were going to be considering a proposed location change, that the board gives more specific and like upfront notice of the item being considered. There wasn't really a description, and it wasn't at a regular meeting, so it wasn't well attended when you guys were reviewing the move from Rutland to Pulteney. And I think if you were to give some more clear public notice of consideration of those actions, you'd be able to get some helpful feedback from stakeholders who might not otherwise know that you're considering this. And that feedback could help you understand the local on-the-ground conditions and understand what other people view their local consumer catchment area as being. And so that would help you understand sort of the overlapping nature of consumer catchment areas of nearby dispensaries. And I know you guys were really struggling at that meeting. I watched the video, really struggling to know kind of what each town is and where consumers, there's no way that you guys can know for all 251 towns in the state what the catchment area is. And so I think inviting that feedback from stakeholders would be helpful to you. And so I just want to encourage you to kind of put that sort of thing on your agenda a little more prominently and avoid having that kind of thing be discussed at either a special meeting or an evidentiary hearing where you don't have 50 people, 60 people in the room to watch and help you. That's all. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Dave. Anyone else for a public comment? And if you joined via phone and would like to comment, you can unmute by hitting *6. Okay. I will close the public comment window. First, Julie, I forgot to mention something at the opening remarks. Would you mind?
Yes. So the employment survey for the cannabis industry is out. Patrick has so kindly sent it out to folks' emails. If you didn't get it and you have an employee ID card, please check your junk mail or your other inbox or wherever those things sometimes land. The more folks we can get to fill that out, the better the data that we'll have to look at. It's also posted on LinkedIn, I believe, and perhaps some of our other social media. It was developed by Alberto Bustamante, who was our intern this summer, and it's out and ready to be completed by folks in the industry. It's open till November 10th. So that's the last piece.
So next on our list on the agenda is to hear from Dr. Volante and Dr. Glaser about some of these public health implications with retail density. And to Dave Silverman's point, we know that there's a difference between tobacco and alcohol with respect to lethality and addictiveness. But I think there are plenty of lessons to be learned about how to avoid marketing to children intentionally or unintentionally, avoiding promoting overconsumption. I think there are some good lessons and corollaries that we can pick up from these industries, which have existed for a lot longer. So, Dr. Volante, I see your name there. Are you able to come off mute?
Yes, I am. And I'm going to share my screen. And Allison Glaser is here. Allison has laryngitis, so I will be the one talking today.
Well, thank you so much for joining us. You're one of our very, very early guests to one of our first or second meetings, I think. And it's great to know that you've helping out with Rutgers and seeing what you're doing. I can kind of help frame up the issue, or Julie, if you want to.
No, go right ahead.
I think you know why you're here, but I can just say that, I think what we're struggling with, one of the unintended consequences of our cannabis law, specifically around retail opt-in and the lack of clarity about local zoning, is that we're seeing a clustering of retail shops in the relatively small number of towns that have actually opted into retail sales. We were given some new authority to kind of get more specific about how retail locations should be cited in the future, and we paused issuing new retail licenses until we've worked out that regulation. But this issue often gets presented to us as a binary choice between either offering more retail locations in order to increase shelf space for cultivators, or limiting the number of retail licenses. Because, every new one that we add decreases the overall profitability of each licensee, and eventually it's going to become unsustainable. But, as we mentioned, I think that there are some public health dynamics at play that we should be certainly considering as we move forward with this policy. So that's why we'd love to talk to you about some of those.
Well, we have a lot of data to share today, so I'm going to jump in. So thank you for having us. We're very happy to be here and share data with you all today. Just disclosures, Dr. Glaser receives funding from NIH to study the impact of cannabis policies on public health. I receive funding from NIH and the state of Vermont to study patterns of tobacco and substance use in teens and young adults. I work at Rutgers, but I live in Vermont. I'm a public health researcher, and I'm a parent of teens in Vermont schools. Neither of us receive any tobacco or cannabis industry funding. So we're going to talk a bit about existing evidence on exposure to the retail environment, both in the tobacco space, but also specifically in the cannabis space and where the emerging evidence is. We're going to share information that we have collected as part of a case study on Vermont cannabis retail outlet density, proximity to schools, as well as youth protections on retailer websites and social media, and survey data that we collected this fall from Vermont teens and young adults about their exposure to cannabis marketing and retail outlets. And then we'll provide some conclusions and recommendations. So when we think about the retail environment, we're thinking about both the actual storefront, but also advertising, price promotions, access, and product displays. And we know that advertising, price promotions are appealing to price-sensitive young people. The availability and presence of retail outlets can normalize use, which can increase susceptibility to use in young people. And because of retail outlets, there's easier perceived access to purchase in young people. These are some examples of what we've seen in retail outlets in New Jersey in terms of outdoor advertising, promotions that are in the stores as well. The evidence on cannabis advertising in youth shows that youth exposure to cannabis advertisements is associated with cannabis use intentions, with past 30-day cannabis use, which is the measure of current use that we use in young people, and lower perceived harm of cannabis use. And young adult exposure to cannabis vape product advertising is associated with increased odds of past 30-day cannabis use. So there is evidence that there is this relationship between exposure to advertising in young people and greater prevalence of use. And when we think about features that are particularly appealing to young people, evidence suggests that illustrations, product descriptions, food or flavor references, depictions of positive sensations, adventure, and psychoactive effects, and references to heavy consumption are associated with interest in using cannabis products and positive attitudes toward products among youth. When we think about the way the places that young people are exposed to cannabis marketing, we see that exposure via social media and outdoors are associated with greater prevalence of use in the past year. In Vermont, we don't have billboards, but we do have outdoor ads that might be even just ads in a storefront that can be visible from the outside of the store. This is well known in the tobacco space that you can have pictures of products or product advertising in the store window that's visible from outside. So in the space of the tobacco evidence, we know there's more established evidence here on the influence of the retail environment on young people, with greater outlet density being positively associated with smoking behaviors among young people, particularly density related to a youth's home, and that more retail outlets are located in neighborhoods with more residents of color, with low-income residents, and with LGBTQ residents, with the idea that retailer density might actually be driving some of our disparities in tobacco use. There's growing evidence in the cannabis space on the relationship between retail outlets and health, specifically that outlets are more likely to be located in neighborhoods with higher deprivation, more uninsured residents, more residents of color, lower household income, and higher crime rate. And there's a systematic review summarizing evidence on cannabis retail outlets and cannabis use, showing that there's a positive relationship between retail outlet location, proximity and density, and adolescent cannabis use, lifetime use, or past month use. So the licensing of retailers also allows for the online retail environment because retailers are allowed to have a web presence, and there's a strong retail presence that's accessible to young people that includes both online sales and social media. National studies to date suggest that compliance, about a quarter of cannabis retail outlets have youth-oriented signage, health claim signage, and exterior ads, all kind of related with youth use. There are differences between licensed and unlicensed retailers. I know we're only talking here about licensed retailers. And then while most retailer websites contain age gating, most methods are ineffective. And about a third of the websites offer delivery, which may allow for circumventing the age gating. Also, retailer social media pages have been found to violate policy requirements and appeal to youth or contain health claims. So we
Do you mind if I?
Sure.
Is it all right if I ask a question? I can save it till the end, but I'm just curious. youth for cannabis is, the dividing line is 21.
Yeah.
When we say like youth oriented and things like that are particularly appealing to youth, and I noticed there was the term adolescence as well. Do you know what the kind of dividing line is between a youth and an adult?
So generally, most of our youth data collection happens at the school. So these are people in middle or high school. And so a lot of the data that you'll see, and that's why we've differentiated youth versus young adults or young people, which is sort of a broader category. So I would be thinking of youth as something like 12 to 17. Young adults, we generally have 18 to 25. There are a few data sources that allow us to get at those 18 to 20-year-olds separate from the folks who are 21 plus. So that's why we're trying to be specific with our language here and really focusing in on the younger folks.
That's great. Yeah, that's helpful. Because I think when we try and determine whether an advertisement is particularly appealing to youth, we're focused on that age cohort too. Yeah.
So we started in this state, there was a national report that came out from the National Academies of Science and Engineering and Medicine. I'm going to call this the NASEM report in 2024 related to cannabis policy and public health. And these data were collected in January of 2023. So Vermont's market had really only been open for a few months. We were already 3 months in the second highest category of retail density. So based on conversations that we've had on our team and requests for information, we did a case study and collected data in the state over the past month. We collected information on cannabis retail outlet density. In the Vermont population, we also looked at adults separate from youth and from young people. We looked at retail outlet proximity to K-12 schools by geocoding each retail outlet and school. We looked at the online retail environment and conducted an audit of retailer websites, looking at the specific requirements in the guidance from July 2024. And we did the same for social media accounts for the retailers. And we also collected original data from Vermont teens and young adults this fall. So I have a lot of data to share. I want to highlight these analyses were conducted in the past month with the goal of rapid dissemination. So findings are preliminary and subject to change based on data checks that we do. In terms of retail outlet density, we use the list of licensed retailers as of September 17th. And Vermont Department of Health population estimates by county and age that were from 2024. We looked at retailer density overall among adults aged 18 plus to compare with the national data, among youth ages 10 to 17, and also among young people ages 10 to 24. We were not able, as I mentioned, to disaggregate those 20-year-olds from the 21 plus in that higher age category based on the data that are available. So we can see here the distribution of the retailers by county, with a fifth of the state's retailers located in Chittenden County, followed by Rutland and Windsor counties. When we look at retailer density overall, with our 2024 population of 648,000 people, the retailer density per adults age 18 plus is 20.7 outlets per 100,000 population. If we look back at that retail outlet map from 2023, we are exceeding that highest category, greater than 10 active outlet. If we break this down by age, so we have 20.7 per 100,000 population in adults age 18 plus. If we look only at youth age 10 to 17, who comprise 9% of the state's population, that retailer density jumps to 200 outlets per 100,000 youth in the state. If we look at that broader group, the group that includes up through 20, age 20. That is a larger proportion of the population, almost 20% of Vermont's population, and the retailer density is 93.5 outlets per 100,000 population. If we break this down, this is just the data by county, again, per 100,000 population. And on the right side, you can see this is the total population. This is adults 18 plus, and this is that group of young people 10 to 24. And what we can see is that there's variability in retail density across the counties, with a couple of counties really sticking out as having high retail density. When we look at the total population, 18 plus and young people, and those are Rutland, Windsor, Lamoille, and Grand Isle counties. Since we only have 600,000 people in the state, the per 100,000 population measure doesn't quite fit. So this is the same data just per 10,000 population. That might be more relevant depending on what we're looking at. Again, same findings, same underlying data, just moving the decimal place. We looked at proximity of the retailers, the 111 retailers, to the K-12 schools. So again, we pulled that list of licensed retailers from September, and we looked at a schools database on the location of 386 schools in the state. We included buffers around each school at 500 feet, 1,000 feet, and 1,500 feet. And then we did a spatial analysis to understand the number of retailers that fell within each of those buffer zones. So what we can see is that there were no licensed cannabis retailers within that state prohibited 500-foot buffer of any school, which was great news. Within a 1,000-foot buffer, there were nine schools were located near 10 retailers in the state. Within a 1,500-foot buffer, 25 schools were located near 39 retailers. So these distances exceed the legal threshold that's currently in the laws, but they do still represent close spatial proximity that might have impact on youth exposure to the retail environment.
Dr. Valenti, can I just ask a quick question about that data? And maybe I missed it, but that 1,500 feet, is that like huh?
Yes, it's like a buffer, like a radius around the school.
Okay.
So it's like as the crow flies, not by a
like walking distance. Yep. Okay. Thank you very much. I just wanted to clarify how that was measured.
Yep.
Patrick is telling us we're getting an echo on the feed.
In terms of the schools that are affected by retailer proximity, there are on the left, this is the 9 schools within 1,000 feet of the retailers. On the right, this is only 10 of the 25 schools within 1,500 feet of cannabis retailers. But just to note which schools are affected. One thing that's interesting here is that Edmonds Middle and Elementary School have different numbers of retailers. They're located on the same campus, but Edwards Elementary is slightly farther away from downtown Burlington than Edmonds Middle School, which is why we see that difference. Though I think if we were thinking about the two schools together, we wouldn't have a distinction really here between the, since they're located on the same campus. And then these are the top 5 cities with schools that are close to cannabis retailers. Fairhaven has 2 retailers that are close to 1 school. The other 4 on the left side only have 1 retailer located within 1,000 feet of 1 school. On the right side, we can see there are 15 retailers in Burlington that are within 1,500 feet of 5 schools. So then we looked at the retailer websites and we used the advertising guidance to guide our data collection instrument. So we looked at all retailers online to determine whether the retailer had a website. If they had a website, we collected information on whether there was age verification or age gating, which was mandatory. and how that functioned. So whether they're redirects to other websites or they're blocked from purchasing. We looked at online store availability and whether one could purchase without age verification. And we looked for the statement or disclaimer information. So all 111 retailers have a website. Most age verification or some sort of protection that is that occurs when folks indicate that they are under 21. Most also have online purchasing available, and fewer of those retailers have online store age gating, meaning that young people can access the online store. Only 9 of the 111 sites had the mandatory health warning label present. A couple of examples of the way that the age gating functioned that we may want to look at a bit further. There's one site where if you said yes, you were referred to the mandatory health warning. If you said no, you were referred to Leafly, where you could identify other places to purchase cannabis. On some sites, there were no options for the age gating. So the site said you had to be 21 or older, but you could still scroll down and see content, and you could also access the store. And then another example is that for some sites you could access if you were under 21 if you hit the back button. So on this site, if you selected no, I'm not 21, you got to the Vermont Department of Health site that had information on cannabis and youth. And if you clicked back, you could get into the site and access the store. In terms of the social media accounts for retailers, again, we used the guidance to inform the data that we collected on each site, including the presence of product images in social media posts. So again, we looked at all retailers to determine the presence of the social media accounts, what platforms the retailer had an account on, whether it was a business or private account, and whether there were photos posted of products on the social media account. And we found that about 2/3 of retailers have an active social media account, a business account. Of those with an account, about 2/3 posted branded images or product posts. And that is not in compliance with the advertising guidance. This is an example of a social media post that featured a product and the text related to promotion, and there was no age-gated access to this post. So we then collected information as part of the PACE Vermont study, which is a study that I lead in partnership with the Vermont Department of Health. Our goal in this study is to understand the impact of state-level policies and communication campaigns on substance use beliefs and behaviors in young Vermonters. We have been collecting data since 2019. Unfortunately, we were not in the field around the time that retail cannabis came in, but we are back in the field and collecting data in 2025 and 2026. So we collect data from Vermont teens and young adults aged 12 to 25. They complete data collection by an online survey. Our Wave 11 survey was open from September through October. We invited almost 500 participants, and we have 340 in these preliminary analyses. This is a convenient sample of young people to try to get a sense of what is going on in real time in the state. And so for these data, the data that I'll present today, we added items to our survey to capture exposure to cannabis stores in the community, exposure to cannabis marketing, and whether they had visited a cannabis retailer in the past 3 months. So in terms of looking at exposure to cannabis stores in the community, we asked how often do you see cannabis stores in your community or in nearby communities? And we found that more than 60% of our teens aged 12 to 17 see cannabis stores in their community at least weekly. And overall, this is similar for our full sample of 12 to 25-year-olds, about a little more than 60%. We asked them how many cannabis stores are in your community, and we had a drop-down menu where they could choose 0 up to 9 and then 10 plus. We've grouped 6 through 9 in this table because of cell sizes. But what you can see here is that more than 90% of Vermont teens aged 12 to 17, again, I'm only reporting here on this column, report at least one cannabis store in their community. And then we asked in the past 3 months, how many times have you visited a cannabis retail store? And I've collapsed the responses here as 0 times or 1+ times. And you can see here that more than 1 in 10 Vermont teens reported having visited a cannabis store, retail cannabis store in the past 3 months. And that's over 50% of our young adults had reported visiting a retail store in the past 3 months. The final question that we asked was related to exposure to cannabis ads or promotions. So we asked, how often do you see ads or promotions for marijuana or cannabis products? Daily, weekly, monthly, less than monthly, never, or don't know. And I'm focusing here on the findings at least weekly, so folks who responded daily or weekly. And you can see that more than a third of young people, youth, the teens here reported at least weekly exposure to promotions for marijuana or cannabis products online, on websites, on social media, and importantly, when I'm out and about. So in stores, on public transportation, or by the side of the road. And this might be our best proxy measure for exposure to the retail environment. So in conclusion, within months of implementation, Vermont already had second to highest category of retail density across the US. As of 2025, the retail density is now 20.7 outlets per 100,000 adults age 18 plus. The density among adults 18 plus and among young people is highest in some of and youth exposure to cannabis advertising and the retail environment is pervasive. Self-reported into retailers, we have more than 60% of Vermont teens seeing a cannabis store in their community at least weekly. More than 90% of Vermont teens report at least one cannabis store in their community. More than 1 in 10 Vermont teens report having visited a cannabis store in the past 3 months. More than 1 in 3 of our PACE Vermont participants exposed at least weekly to cannabis advertising online, on social media, or when they're out and about. Online retailer websites have ineffective age gating to reduce youth exposure to products and promotions. And the online retailer social media accounts promote products with features that are known to be appealing to young people. So there have been a number of policy approaches to reduce retail density for tobacco and cannabis. Some of them are listed out here. An important piece is that for tobacco, the buffer around schools was deemed to be one of the most equitable ways to reduce retail density, though there have been a number of approaches tried. So our recommendations to reduce youth exposure are to inform compliance and enforcement actions with annual retailer audits, including auditing brick and mortar and online stores, online presence. In the store, recommend collecting information on whether there's age verification or ID checks at entry, at the time of purchase, whether there's presence of exterior and interior advertising, including price promotions, the visibility of interior advertising or products from outside the store, whether there are free samples or tastings, promotional or sale items or gifts. These things are known to be associated with young people, youth appeal. And additionally, presence of illicit products like hemp-derived products in the shops. And then in terms of websites, we recommend collecting information on appropriate age gating. There might even be an opportunity for the board to update guidance regarding specific practices for age gating to reduce youth exposure. Whether there are online store availability and age verification at purchase, the mandatory health warning being included, and for both websites and social media, whether there's compliance with the advertising guidance regarding images, text, and promotions. In terms of limiting density or addressing density, might consider increasing the buffer around schools to 1,000 or 1,500 feet. This may require businesses to move outside the buffer or potentially to comply with more stringent youth exposure restrictions if they're within a certain radius. So thinking about, having greater restrictions to have no visibility into the store if they're within a certain radius of a school. Also, we recommend that the board oversee the geographic distribution of retailers across the state, which it seems like you're doing now, creating potentially a per capita limit for retail density in the state and in each county, and considering per capita density within each county when approving new retailer applications or continuing applications. And this might include reducing outlets over time or limiting new retailers in the highest density counties to reduce disproportionate exposure. And additionally, it's difficult for localities to have the onus for compliance and enforcement. So the extent to which the board can share responsibility with localities in determining location of retailers within the communities to reduce youth exposure to retail outlets, including outlet density. For tobacco, we know there are a number of things in the public health world that reduce initiation, like comprehensive tobacco control programs, smoke-free policies, interventions to increase the unit price for tobacco products, and mass communication efforts. There's not that same evidence right now for cannabis prevention. So we recommend ensuring a comprehensive approach to cannabis control with greater funding for youth cannabis and substance use prevention that occurs in the context of state and community interventions, health communication interventions, cessation interventions, surveillance and evaluation, and of course, your work on regulating the retail environment, both in person and online. I want to acknowledge my colleagues, my team who contributed to this rapid data collection process, and happy to answer any questions.
Thank you for that. Yeah.
So when we talk about the ratio of retail density, I'm curious how your team handled tourism data in Vermont. We see about 15 million tourists a year, 9% of our GDP. I'd imagine most of those are adults over the age of 21 that are spending those tax dollars, and that didn't seem to be a part of the conversation here. So wondering how you handled that.
So we didn't look at any sales data or we only looked at population data.
I'm not talking about cannabis specific sales, just generally Vermont is a pretty tourism heavy state. So when we think about the total number of people traveling in and out of Vermont at various times of the year, the focus on residents versus how our population, whether it's a weekend trip, day trip, X, Y, and Z, how you handle those issues.
We only looked at population data provided by the state. So we're looking at exposure for residents. So yeah, I don't really know how the tourism data would impact retail density.
Okay, thank you.
So there's a recommendation about caps by county. Is that just for ease of administration, or should we be? I mean, because we of course considered countywide caps, and we were thinking about retail density, but really, we kind of got some information that maybe we should be looking at catchment areas as opposed to kind of it's just not a perfect proxy. If you have one right on the border of between kind of Rutland and Chittenden, you may be in the same catchment area, increasing retail density for an area, but it wouldn't be caught up in the county cap conversation.
Yeah, I think there are limits in what data we have access to, right? So we have distribution of residents by county, but I don't know that we have, I suppose we have in some form some sort of spatial data where you can look at truly from someone's residence what their retail density. Those data are not available currently from our state government, as far as I know.
Right.
So yeah, I think that is an important thought. I think county is a marker that can be used and can be compared across states. It's something that could be easier to have data. If you're making a data informed decision, that's where the data are available. And I don't know that I would limit it. I don't know that I would separate the population of the county from the county limit. So we have counties that are very, very small. Essex County doesn't have any retailers in it right now. But we might think about the distribution in that way.
The other question I had about the question about how often do you see a cannabis store? Is there something, what we have said in our regulations, and maybe it's, imperfect in the actual enforcement of it, but is there anything that kind of promotes cannabis, or especially if it's a picture of a product, as an advertisement subject to the, demographic restrictions? So we would hope that someone walking by a cannabis store would, other than the sign that calls it a cannabis dispensary or the pot leaf that's on the front door, aren't really going to be exposed to brands or specific products. Are there concerns beyond that? Is it like just the normalization of cannabis generally? We just tried hard to make sure that a kid walking by a cannabis store wouldn't really be exposed to brands over and over and over again, other than the brand of the store itself.
So I think that's where, I think the presence of stores and the number of stores in a community can change the norms around, perceived norms of use. This is very prevalent in my community versus this is very rare in my community. And norms impact substance use for young people. And family use impacts substance use for young people. So I think in terms of the retail environment, yes, just the presence of the store can impact norms, but I think we're more concerned about what does that store look like to young people? What are they able to see? If there's no exterior advertising, what do they see when they see that shop? Is it just the name? Is there other information provided outside? Is there information that they can see inside the retailer? And I've seen changes over the past few years where it seemed like retailers were very by the book and that you really couldn't see anything inside, to being able to see products or signage over time.
Yeah, so we got to be a little bit better internally about that, because our rules don't allow the kind of, you're not supposed to be able to see any products inside the store. My other question is more of a longer term thing, is, the Department of Health does a survey of retailers, purveyors of alcohol and tobacco every 2 years. They, I think, would like to add some questions to that survey about cannabinoid hemp products, high THC hemp products that are being offered for sale under kind of some farm bill loopholes. at those stores, not the cannabis shops, but the ones that sell tobacco and alcohol. And I'd love for us to get some, I'd hate to duplicate anything you're doing with PACE. And I'd also like to make sure that we're getting baseline data that can be compared over time. And I'm hoping that we might be able to loop you in on that process as we're kind of developing questions for those products.
Yep, definitely. That does not overlap with PACE. We're only collecting data from people, not stores. So I think that's a really important part of complementary data collection, understanding what's in the stores and then understanding how young people are exposed and report what they're seeing in the stores.
That's great. All right. Thank you.
You asked most of my questions,
Sorry.
actually. The county thing was what I was going to ask about. So I appreciate your time, Dr. Valenti. This is very helpful information and a lot for us to think about.
Yeah.
Thank you.
It's great that you're in Vermont too. You know, I thought maybe New Jersey was going to steal you away when I heard you're going to Rutgers.
Nope, still here.
Great. Well, thank you very much. And thank you, Allison, as well. All right. So next on our agenda, we're going to hear from the Vermont State Colleges about a cannabis workshop that they're working on that involves some of the, I guess, the intersection with some of the cannabis business development efforts. So we have some guests here in the room. I've heard that there's an echo that's happening, but we'll just proceed until I hear that it's unbearable for attendees.
Thank you. Patrick, could you throw up those slides? Hi, everyone. I'm Timothy Egan on behalf of Program Chair, Director Philip Lammy at Castleton, myself and Jonathan Kaplan, who are part-time faculty at Linden and Johnson. We are all part of the Cannabis Studies Certificate Program. We're proud to have been working and developing through a grant from the Chancellor's Office to develop educational workshops for social equity applicants. And we work closely with Nathan Davidson and the Department of Economic Development and the Agency for Commerce and Community Development so that we can utilize the value for social equity applicants to utilize cannabis business development funds and help them do their job and create their business with more skill and expertise. So if you want to share that next slide, Patrick.
Saw that Phil joined.
So Phil has actually, Phil has a 2 o'clock class, so he had to run because the other presentation ran a little long, and it's his 70th birthday, so we can't begrudge him anything today. So this is our little team of folks here as well, part of the university. I'm the chapter director for Vermont Normal, so we try to factor in how our educational processes impact the local community, not just folks in the industry. Next slide. So I won't belabor what our program is, but simply we are a 12-credit certification program based out of the Castleton campus with courses in cannabis, cultivation, culture and consciousness, and a very innovative 3-credit internship. We'll actually be expanding the courses in the spring with and wellness and one next year in compliance. Next slide, please. So what you really want to know. So we developed 2 sets of workshops that Jonathan and I will each oversee. And they're not classes, they're workshops. It's really important for us to make sure that the attendees have an opportunity to share business issues and challenges that they've been facing with not only ourselves, but some experts that we've brought in that understand the industry and the community. And I'll let Jonathan talk about the 2 that are focused on cultivation, and then I'll be speaking to 2 that are focused on business. Jonathan?
Okay, so I'm a plant pathologist by training. So, you know, and I moved up to Vermont because I was an organic vegetable farmer for 9 years and part of the certification board there too. So my approach is definitely holistic and definitely organic. And that's not to say that I disparage indoor, but I think the people that can benefit the most by this are probably people that want to get their hands dirty, whether it's in a greenhouse or whether it's in the field. So the workshops, there's, two workshops. One is going to focus on all the problems, be it pests, fungi, as well as climate change problems, whether it's dealing with the drought, dealing with excessive smoke, which invariably cuts down on your productivity, or flooding. So there's all sorts of the plagues that are a challenge to growers. So part of that is to help give tools and help people share their experiences. Because as a plant pathologist, I study lots of diseases, but I very rarely see them. One of the first things we learn is that disease is the exception, not the rule, or none of us would be here, right? So, but with everybody in the room, we can share our experience, and certainly, we can offer some ideas on how to control those things. Because sometimes when we're trying to maximize yield and profit, we are making ourselves vulnerable to catastrophic events that could destroy our yield and profit. So that'll be the focus of it, and sharing, with the growers that are there, and the participants all have their own horror stories, and then the other workshop is on the genetics, because the genetics you choose is going to be based on what you're trying to grow. The different businesses have different needs. If you're growing for fiber, you have a lot easier row to hoe in many respects than if you're growing for indoor and THC content and all these other things. And so you need to be aware and need to be wary of the type of genetics. And also we will be talking about how to, create your own genetics, and how to keep your own seeds, and how to, anything you can do as a grower that's trying to get into this, that cuts out a middleman for any of the products that you need, is a good tool to have. So there'll be just some discussion on that as well, as how to just start your own seed stock, how to do your own hybrids, how, because, you can buy sex seeds, you can clone, although cloning obviously runs out of some vigor after a while, or you can actually just pay attention to what you're growing in the field, slaughter the males, and do your own breeding and stuff too. So it'll be a lot of practical information, and also the ability to bring your problems to us. There'll be no couch there, but to bring your growing problems anyways. And we can offer some creative solutions to them. With the pest end of it, I can particularly get concerned because theoretically nothing is really licensed to be applied to cannabis. So, anything that's licensed has been licensed since the beginning of time. It's not really a product. So knowing that, and knowing how you can avoid falling into the chemical trap, which you really need to do because it's illegal to use these things anyways. So that'll be the focus of my workshops, and a lot of give and take, and a lot of information to be gleaned based on what the problems are. I only see what goes on in my backyard. And this summer it was destruction of a barn to fix it up. So nothing was going on in terms of growing in my backyard. So
Thank you, Jonathan. Jonathan's workshops will take place on December 5th. They're from 9 to 12, and then from 1 to 4 p.m. There is lunch served as well included in these workshops, and there is some polite consulting. We very much want to have it be a workshop style, so him and his guest experts will be able to share insights to help you with your challenges.
It's indoor and outdoor, right? You're not the various.
Yeah, no, I have my own personal views. Right. I'll be on my soapbox, but no, it's indoor as well as outdoor. And indoor has their own set of problems, very different from outdoor. No doubt about
storage as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Post harvest is a big thing.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Then on December 6th, I'll speak to what I refer to as Cannabis Business 101, which is helping folks that are maybe in the startup mode. While these workshops are obviously open to social equity licensees, we'll cover this in another slide. It's also open to folks that may have their ID card and are thinking about getting into the business. So if you're planning or thinking through, how do I open my own cannabis business? We'll discuss that, whether it's business plan, supply chain, logistics, all the things that you think you might need to know. And some of you that already have a business, maybe you'll learn that you've missed something. So hopefully we'll cover that in our first session. The second one, cannabis compliance, is we'll talk a little bit more about processing, packaging, and promotion. Obviously, there's been some changes in some of the rules, so we'll try to dig into those around advertising to help you as a retailer help better position yourself to be a success in the marketplace, as well as for those that are running ancillary type of businesses, processing for edibles or large scale cultivation, a little bit of sort of business advice on how to make sure that you're staying compliant and that you're getting the most out of your license opportunity. So that was our December 6th, same time window, 9 to noon, then a lunch break, and then 1 to 4 with a little bit of discussion afterwards. These courses, sorry, I'll pause if you have any questions about the content there.
No, I think that's great.
Sounds awesome.
So both of them.
101, just one question. For folks who are looking to like scale up or scale down, would that be another topic that you would?
Yeah,
Okay.
again, the logic of workshops, we can give you our general sense of what we think businesses should be doing, but part of the discussion is also having business leaders come to these workshops and say, hey, I'm struggling with this. How can you help me? That's why for the compliance course, we're proud to have Ben Verratti, who's a Vermont Law School cannabis business law professor. He'll be part of that compliance course, as well as Hayata Kirby, who's a social equity applicant licensee, to basically help you get advice from people that are in that space. The wonderful world of education is, my phrase is, the minute you think you know everything, you haven't learned anything. We don't know all. We try to bring expertise into these workshops. The most important thing I should tell you is where they are. So I'm proud that Vermont University Johnson campus, the Willie Library and Learning Center, will be hosting these, room 208. There's more information that we're going to cover in a second on registration, but those are the content workshops that are on December 5th and December 6th.
And you, it sounds like, are going to also have the not therapy session, but the bring your problems.
Yeah, Jonathan has a couch, and I'll put on my businessman's visor and get out my pencil and say, how can we help you make your assets and your profits balance or show more profits than debts?
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to break any confidentiality of these at all, but it'd be great to hear some of the problems that people are facing. We're currently drafting a report about the Cannabis Business Development Fund and how it should be funded and what it should be used for. And, I'm trying to highlight the various challenges that people are facing
right
in this industry.
These are not recorded and not Zoomed on purpose so that people can be candid about their issues, but I'm glad to collect data and ask people if they can share their information anonymously and share that. Because I think actually this is a good part of this workshop is those, you want to know what people are struggling with so you can help them more. And I know you all were pivotal in working with us and the Agency for Commerce Community Development to put these workshops on. So we want to make sure that this information sharing, it's experts helping struggling business leaders, and then be able to share that information back to you so you can keep helping them. I'll reference what I thought was very successful. You had a peer-to-peer webinar about a week or two ago, last week, and I thought that was very refreshing that the control board had it and was listening to licensees in a different way. So we're hoping that this is another facet of doing that.
And certainly in a growing world, it's anecdotal evidence that leads to what we focus our efforts on. Right. So if suddenly everybody has a septoria problem except one person, well, that's great. Let's find out why that one person didn't. And then so it really does drive the research and the focus.
Next slide, Patrick, please. So here's the link. It's also available through the Vermont State University Workforce Development form stack. This is open specifically to social equity licensees, and it's supported through the stature for Cannabis Business Development funding. And as those of you that are not licensees, maybe you have your ID card, actually funding is available for these workshops from VSAC. So whether you're a non-social equity business owner or an industry employee, we wanted to make sure that everyone that had an opportunity or had an interest in this opportunity could participate in it. Nathan, do you want to speak to any of that?
Yeah, I would like to express that VSAC funding, my understanding is it's not a guarantee for workshop applicants, but it is something that you're at least eligible to apply for. So if there is kind of some sort of fiscal barrier in attending these workshops, it's at least something that's worthwhile to apply.
Did you share the cost? Is that, sorry.
Cover that next.
Okay.
Next slide, please. So if you have more information on these, here's how you can reach that. When you reference packaging before, lunch and some supplies for attendees are courtesy Bovida and Vivi. We know that we can't always ask the state to front all the costs for a workshop. So we want to make sure they were gracious enough to allow us to bring in a partner who provide lunch and refreshments. And then the last slide, let's talk a little bit about the economics of it.
Yep. Hey, everybody. Nathan Davidson, working with Department of Economic Development under the Agency of Commerce and Community Development. For those of you who aren't familiar, our department houses the Cannabis Business Development Fund, which is directed towards supporting social equity licensed cannabis businesses, primarily through financial assistance, but also through some technical assistance through a consulting group called Rhodes Consulting. We wanted to get more technical assistance opportunities out to the social equity cannabis business community, and recognizing Vermont State University's expertise in this area and your ongoing courses, we thought it would be a great idea to partner with them in helping to fund these workshops specifically for social equity licensed cannabis businesses. So the typical cost for one of these workshops is $250. If you were to take all four, it would make it $1,000. But for social equity cannabis businesses, we're going to be reducing that cost to $50 per workshop. So all four workshops would cost a total of $200. That's a great offer. I don't know a lot of workshops or trainings offered out there that are even $250 as opposed to $50. And then when you loop in their expertise, the hands-on nature of these workshops, they're in person, there is networking opportunities. You may be able to get to speak with interns from Vermont State University who are familiar with this industry. There's a lot of wraparound services tied with these workshops. So for that price, it's a really great offer. In addition to the reduced registration costs for social equity licensees, we're also going to be supporting with lodging and travel reimbursements for those who may not be able to attend these workshops because of the in-person nature of them. You may be traveling from Bennington or Northeast Kingdom. So we want to make sure that there's no fiscal barrier there for folks. So for lodging reimbursement, Vermont State University has a series of partnered hotels and inns throughout the Lamoille County area. I know there's a couple in Morrisville that will offer reduced price for their nightly stay, as long as you're affiliated with Vermont State University. So if you express that I'm partaking in these workshops through Vermont State University to one of those partnered hotels, you'll not only receive a reduced nightly stay, but we can also reimburse your lodging costs. That doesn't include meals, room service, anything else tied to your stay. That's just for the room itself. And it is only eligible if you're working with one of the partnered hotels or staying at one of the partnered hotels and your social equity business. And then travel reimbursement. If your total travel is over 10 miles to attend these workshops, you're eligible for a mileage reimbursement of around 21 cents per mile, I believe is the number. And the process for reimbursement for both lodging and travel will involve you emailing myself, nathan.davidson@vermont.gov, your paid invoice or receipt for your nightly stay at a hotel or inn. And then for the travel, just let us know where you traveled from and where you returned to for the workshops. And then we can just do the calculations on the total mileage and multiply it by the dollar amount per mile. And in addition, full name and affiliated cannabis business.
So the 4 workshops are across 2 days, morning and afternoon. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then, so for folks, anyone can apply for the VSAC grant, right? Whether they're social equity or not, anyone can go apply for that VSAC grant for.
Yeah.
So theoretically, somebody could potentially, if they're eligible and VSAC accepts, could cover the majority of the cost, maybe.
Right, that was the goal. Patrick, could you go back 2 slides for me, please? maybe. Thank you. So our Center for Workforce and Professional Development is overseeing the registration form. In that link that you noted, you will note if you are a social equity business, and they will confer with your office and through the DED to make sure that you get the discount that you are entitled to as well. There's information, a link there to apply for VSAC funding, and a contact within our workforce development who can advise you on filling out that application for that funding. They want to be as sort of hands-on supportive as possible. It's refreshing that from top down, President Berg on through our university has been supporting the efforts of the Cannabis Studies certificate program to be more engaging in the business community. And so this is one of the ways that we're doing it, is utilizing not only our faculty from our program, but also our workforce development program, which develops workshops in different areas, in HVAC and construction. And this was, they were politely pleased that we came to them to say, could you help us, you make sure that we execute this. So there's a lot of information available in that link. I think your office will be sharing this link other places.
I think it's on our website in the social equity tab of our website, landing space for our website. I think it's there. I think it's there now. I'm not.
Okay.
I think we did a press release.
Right.
There was a press release.
There is a press release that's sent out. I know actually, I wish Phil was on our call. Like I said, he had his class. I think the Rutland Herald has printed it, and I think a paper in Bennington has. But the key is that this link here, which you can also reach out to us. So Patrick, one more forward slide, please. So you can reach out to Phil, Jonathan, or myself, and we can share more information with you. We can share with you what might else be talked about at the workshops.
Did I miss, is there a cutoff date for sign up?
No. So there is, but there is a cap. I think our recommended cap is 15 people per workshop. And then in the sort of tiered priority are social equity applicants, then general licensees and ID card employees, and then third, the general public. And that's why we want to make sure that the VSAC part of it, because there might be somebody who's been wanting to get into the cannabis industry and is not sure, and might be a more cost-effective way for them to say, is this an industry I want to go into, and learn a little bit more about what are the challenges so I know what I'm getting myself into. But majority, our focus is on social equity applicants, licensees, and ID card holders to better understand the challenges of the industry and have discussions with their peers and professionals to help them move their business and their career opportunity forward.
Yep, that's another aspect, the networking aspect of these. We're trying to make them somewhat open-ended and allow for informal discussions along the way. So
right, each event has a lunch session, again, sponsored by our friends at Vivian Bobita, as well as at the end of the day, sort of what we would term, consulting, which is let's take time to talk through what you just learned, and is there information sharing between attendees who might say, oh, here's 3 of us have that same problem. Let them go off in a corner and say, how can they work together, and share information. So that's an important part of this is sort of building a sense of community in education so that folks can learn from others' mistakes so they don't make them, or learn from others' tips and tricks that make them successful.
And did you say there were going to be interns, people who had interned or are interested in interning?
So we will share information. The Vermont State University actually has a robust internship program. I think I can say publicly that interns have been here at the control board as well. Yes, you actually mentioned Alberto earlier. Mm-hmm. So Alberto Bustamante was a senior intern. We will talk with you, or if you are interested in access to an intern, we try to sort of make sure that you're getting an intern that's focused on your business. If you're a cultivator, that's different than a retailer or a processor. So you might want someone that's more hands-on, hands in the dirt oriented, or you might want someone that's more business or marketing oriented. We will try to make sure that we make those connections for you and then save your information and share with you students that are looking for internships and make sure that we match them up. So depending on if there's timing of, students that are looking for internships, they traditionally happen in those, formal semesters, the fall and the spring, but our program is very flexible. Actually, we have an intern starting at a social equity applicant this month, which is in the middle of the semester, and he's going to take his 140 hours and work through cultivation season and the holiday market to help them market their products. And then his internship will end. So our university is very flexible because they know that the cannabis industry isn't a September and January like the college term. It happens, there are different times of stress where you need an intern. The other thing that we worked on is that our interns, if they have taken all 3 of their core courses, they've achieved the milestones to earn their ID card. So hopefully that your interns, as long as they've passed those 3 courses, will show up for their internship with the skill sets to have received their state required ID card for an employee. We cannot do the background check. That's still on the business to do that, but we're trying to send you ready working interns. So there's a limited amount of stress that you have to go to bring someone in.
That's great.
Couldn't say it better myself.
Yeah. This is a persistent need that has been identified for us from the beginning, the lack of business support, the lack of someone to call when something's going wrong. It's just, this is an industry that the Small Business Administration does not support, that the state of Vermont supports off and on, with this Cannabis Business Development Fund.
Yeah, being from the educational side, we've learned that, unfortunately, federally, the Department of Labor and the SBA and some of those agencies aren't there for the cannabis industry. I think a lot of cultivators learned that during the recent floods and, the lack of attention that FEMA may have paid to them. So if we can fill a gap in working with state partners like your agency and Nathan's agency, this is what a state college is supposed to do. We're supposed to help local business leaders and people that want to get access to educational information to help them, move their life and their career forward. And in the process, if our young people who are students or we actually in the cannabis studies program have a lot of adult learners, if they can get access to the career through internships or connecting with business leaders. Now what we're doing is, which I think all of us want, is how do we keep more young people in the state of Vermont? So we're not 680,000. We get back, we get our numbers up.
That's great.
Thank you so much.
I know people generally like to have a certification, but they generally don't like taking tests. Is there a certification or a test associated with these workshops?
So the certification program is if you pass all 4 of the courses, you receive a certification. It has actually been noted on your degree program. So when folks do graduate, they'll walk with their Bachelor of Arts and Bachelor of Science in Business Management with a certification in Cannabis Studies. And then, like I said, with the ID card, all of the students have to have a passing grade of all 3 cultivation, cannabis, and culture and consciousness. Those 3 courses, those milestones are tied to your legal requirements for education for ID card. And so there's sort of big certification when they graduate, but there's also one that gets them into the industry as a worker.
And that's separate from the workshops. That's a more extensive,
right.
Longer.
So
content, yeah.
The big paragraph that I didn't read through at the beginning is our 12 credit 4-course program, which is offered in what we call at the university uniquely face-to-face plus, which is you can learn sitting in the seat, you can learn by Zoom, or you can learn it online. Wow, Patrick, I didn't even need to cue you and you brought it right back up. So what we were trying to do there is be able to make sure that if you want to get an overview of the cannabis industry and work in it, and you are committed to it, and maybe you want to make that part of your business degree or your arts degree or your sciences degree, the university wants to be able to make sure that it's available for you. But we see it as a huge opportunity for students to come to Vermont and be able to access something that, other than, correct me if I'm wrong, Jonathan, a college in New Jersey, that's the closest you're going to find in the 6 New England states of someone providing a comprehensive educational program on cannabis studies.
It's great.
Yeah, so the exams are within the courses themselves, clearly.
Okay.
But we are investigating also how to micro-credential these workshops.
Yeah.
So in what, some sort of assessment, we don't like to use the word exam, but some way of assessment that knowledge has been gathered and it's helpful. So, and that's one thing at a time, but that would, you know, or you can stack these workshops and get credential or credit towards your final certification.
This is great.
Yeah,
Really, thank you for all the work getting this together.
Appreciate the time.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks for the opportunity.
Looking forward to seeing how it all turns out. Exciting.
Anything to help the Johnson economy right now.
What you get to the rest of your agenda. Thank you for your time today.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. So why don't we just take a 2-minute break while I get Olga and Gabe?
Yep.
Patrick, I don't know if you need to put anything up. I'm assuming just 2 minutes here. I'll just turn my camera off for a sec. All right, looks like we're still recording. We just took a quick break. It's 2:30 p.m. 10/29/2025, and we're going to pick up with the executive director report. We are running a little bit behind schedule. Apologies to everyone for that.
Apologies accepted by staff. All right, so here we are, October 29, Executive Director Report. Quick look at our public engagement page. On the 22nd, we held our event on stakeholder legislative goals. Those of you who might have missed that, please visit our YouTube channel. Stay tuned for the update on our next peer networking event. It might include an additional section on legislative issues, but it's still a TBD, and Patrick and team are exploring options and will announce as soon as we have the topic and the time confirmed. So that's where we are at here. And the data, adult use program data is next. The data is as of October 16th. So first slide here, a snapshot of our active licenses. As you could see, 584 active licenses as of the middle of October, 10 fewer than last month, and 11 fewer than a year ago, 11 more than a year ago at that time, and 10 less than last month. Think I got that? Trying to go a little faster than I should. But obviously, given that most license types are closed to newcomers, some attrition is to be expected, but we'll keep an eye on the health of the market as we have been doing in case of any anomalies. So that's this slide. And now we are looking at licenses by the type. That's across the most recent quarter. As you could see, small and steady reduction in our cultivator category continues, down to 366 from 374 last month. Again, they're seeing the same sort of attrition symptoms, given that the cultivation licensing is temporarily closed to new entrants. One additional change is a small drop in our manufacturing category. We went down from 94 to 92 licensees. No changes otherwise.
So on the retail, last month or our mid-month meeting, we decided not to extend a retail license that had missed its renewal deadline. Is that not reflected in those
I wonder if it's the dates
Okay.
thing when the report was pulled.
Okay.
They were good until like almost the end of October.
Okay. Oh, that's probably it. Yeah.
Yeah. So just just the data. I mean, they would have been accounted
Okay.
in that number.
Got it.
Because, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So moving on. So priority status, no changes here, really months over months, continue to remain steady across all categories. Okay. A quick look, I have a few slides here also on the priority status. So here we are looking at the last 3 months worth of data. All of our active licenses accounted here. October data is in the last column. So again, we're seeing fairly consistent proportional change in each priority status months over months. If you look back at August, September, and October. Good. Okay. And now a closer look at just the cultivators. Again, that's the priority status slide. Again, we're not seeing any discrepancies here. Decreases are pretty consistent across all priority status types, months over months. That. Already, I'll pull up our manufacturers. Same slide, months over months. You could see the 2 manufacturers that exited the market in October were both standard licensees. Those numbers are also steady across priority status types. Right? Next set of slides, back to our cultivation, folks. So here you're looking at our cultivator licenses broken down by type and tier. We always show that slide. If you remember from the earlier slide, we are showing a decrease of 8 cultivators months over months. It's reflected here with indoor tier 1 still remaining our most common license type at 130. That's the status. And a similar slide, only 3 months worth of data here to give you a clearer picture of gains and losses over time. If you look closer here, and I think I have that down, our outdoor tier 1 dropped by 3 licensees from 76 to 73, indoor tier 1 by 2, mixed tier 1 by 2 as well. There we are also showing a decrease of 1 mixed tier 5 cultivator. They tiered down to an indoor tier 1 license. So that's just one more of an outlier there. So that's the snapshot where we're at. Okay. Moving on, a quick look at our manufacturers. Again, 3 months worth of data, and the 2 manufacturers captured here, they were both tier 2s that exited the market. Okay, so there is their manufacturer slide. A quick look at the licensed canopy capacity square footage data. So indoor is in green and outdoor is in yellow. Total amount of licensed canopy is now 849,000 square feet, down 30,000 square feet months over months. Again, due to the attrition in our cultivation numbers. And as we've been noticing, the gap is closing between our indoor and outdoor capacity. We are now within 38,000 square feet.
And this is the licensed capacity. It's not necessarily what's utilized.
Utilized, yes. Okay. We do have some of the data, but I'm hoping to get a better sense of that.
Sure. Yeah.
Okay, so that's where we are at with those numbers. And next we'll look at our relinquishments data. So that's one of our most data-rich slides, lots of color here. So just to simplify it, on the left, you're looking at the last 3 months of relinquishments by priority status of the business. So you could just see the just priority status data there. And then on the right, the right chart is focusing on the types and tiers of licenses that have been relinquished. So in October, we recorded 10 total relinquishments, including 6 standard and 2 each social equity and economic empowerment. And then if you were to look closer at the last block right there with our October data, you'll see that the numbers included 8 cultivators and 2 manufacturers to match the earlier slides. Just a little more color here. Again, tier 1 stands out in terms of the numbers, but again, if tier 1s are disproportionately represented among our licensees, so it doesn't seem as much of an outlier. You consider the entirety of a license pool. All right, so that is what we got for the licensing data, and now we'll take a look at our compliance and enforcement data. So a quick snapshot of our agency's inspection and investigation activity. 112 inspections and 14 investigations in October. A lot of good work. You could see more specifically, lots of cultivation visits this month. And retail too. Next, we'll focus on just investigations here. Again, each color represents a different subject of investigation, with red is retail, yellow manufacturing, and green cultivation type cases and investigations. We've got a lot of advertising violations this month in comparison to other subsets.
What's the difference between licensed activity and outside license?
Keep, do you want to take that?
I think unlicensed would be completely somebody who doesn't hold a license engaging in a licensed activity, whereas outside would be outside of the scope, like a manufacturer that had tried to sell directly or something like that.
Thank you. Sure.
Mm-hmm. All right. Good.
Yep.
Okay. Right, moving on. Other actions this month. Let's see, if you look at the complaint count, we recorded 32, slightly down comparing to the prior months. 12 letters of warning and 4 notices of violations recorded this month, and 5 product destructions and 5 cessations of operations that were overseen by our team. Lots of time on the road and in the office. As far as the complaints go, there's a breakdown by subject. I would say dismissed category is sort of more popular this month. What that means is the complaints were not found to require any anything actual from the team based on the desktop review by our director for compliance. So that's where that one lands. And next is our letters of warning. So 12 were issued. You could see what those were all about.
Client's refusal.
Yeah, we get that too.
No. What can you say more about what that?
We'll have to ask Mike more specifically. I assume it has something to do with an inspection and some requirement.
Okay.
Well, yeah, I assume what happened is one of our field officers had requested certain changes based on the outcomes of the inspection, and then went in to check on the establishment to see if certain things were addressed, and those were not, and then got escalated. Again, probably not, would have not been anything that's very challenging to the health and safety.
Okay.
But yeah, but I can come back. All right. Notices of violation. There is so 4 of those this month. See. Yes. Okay. Now, final slide here from the compliance team. So again, those are the reasons as reported to our compliance team that motivated our licensees to terminate the operations. Some of them personal, some of them are business related, but we have been trying to collect as much as we can.
I know we ask you this every time, but people are allowed to choose more than one.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So you could choose as many as you want. Most people do. Those who do provide that information usually have more than one reason. Yeah. Yep. Okay. Move on. If we are ready, on to the medical program data. So the trend continues. Year over year, our caregiver count is up from 120 to 128, and the patient count went up by 248. So our take right now is that likely marks the revival of interest because of the medical endorsements coming online. But we will continue to keep an eye on those numbers.
What was it at the highest?
5,600
Okay.
in the year before they legalized home grow.
Okay.
And it dropped off significantly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So right there, yep, that is the trend. And just to kind of throw another slide in here, in addition to the 3 medical dispensaries that we had for a while, we now have 5 retail stores with approved medical endorsements, which soon will begin serving patients. And you could sort of see where on the map those 5 places are as of today.
A lot more today, right?
We will have, yes, a lot more on the list for you to review and weigh in. Yes. All right. And with that, we are moving on to the staff recommendations.
Okay.
So first slide that I have for you is our staff recommend list for initial licensure. So 1 manufacturer, 1 wholesaler, and a propagator. For some additional color, 2 of those licensees already have other licenses with us. Turkey Hollow Cannabis holds a Tier 1 indoor cultivation license, and Principles of Pinnacle Wholesale have a Tier 3 indoor license. And our propagator is new to our market.
Okay. Is there a motion to approve these?
I move that the board adopt staff recommendations for initial licensure for the applications listed with issuance subject to final payment and any required fees and any other contingencies.
And I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. All right. So now I have conventional license renewals for you. All are recommended by our staff. I have 5 slides here. So
Okay.
Lots of renewals this month. So I'll leave this one posted for a quick moment.
And all these people were on time.
All of
Thank
these
you.
people.
That's great.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, we had, I think, over 70. Yeah, renewals and that were on time. Yep.
It's really great.
Yep. It's definitely. So that's our second page. There is a third page. Fourth page. And the final slide.
All right. That's great. Yeah, I'm really impressed that, all these were on time. It's got to be like close to 60 people, right?
Yeah, I think about 70. And
70?
that's amazing work by our licensing team
Yeah.
to kind of get them
Yeah.
through in
Yeah.
a very timely manner. And it's nice to see our community coming together and doing their part.
Great job.
Yeah. Okay.
Is there a motion to approve these renewals?
I move that the board approve the listed applications subject to usual contingencies.
No, second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, thank you. Okay, a few more slides for you today. So here you're looking at two applicants who wish to renew in a different cultivation tier. Both ask to move from a mixed tier 1 to the outdoor tier 1 to better reflect their operations and plans. And our licensing team recommends approval here.
Okay. Any questions for Olga about these? All right. Is there a motion to approve these?
I move that the board approve the listed applications with their respective tier changes, subject to the usual contingencies.
And I will second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay, moving on. Here you're looking at an applicant that wishes to change its location from St. Johnsbury to Westmore. Westmore does not have an LLCC. The applicant has been planning this move for many months and is within their regular renewal window. They've completed and submitted their timely renewal. Our compliance team has visited and approved the site. And our licensing team recommends that this is approved with Westmore as a new site of operations.
Great. Any questions about that?
No.
No.
All right. Is there a motion to approve the change of location?
I move that the board approve the listed application for change in location, subject to the usual contingencies.
And I will second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Thank you. Okay, next, what we have for you here, it's a request for ownership changes made coincident with the licensee's renewal. The licensing division has received necessary documentation to support the renewal, and as well as the explanations for changes requested. However, our staff wants to call to your attention that the requested ownership shift would add an extraordinary number of less than 10% shareholders who have not been scrutinized as large interest holders are, which creates a situation in which the board has not made their usual inquiries into who controls most of the establishment shares, and if there is an affiliations issue. So at this point, if the board is comfortable, the board can renew the license and approve the ownership change now, or if the board needs more information about the incoming shareholders, it can defer action until the regular December meeting and request affiliations declarations and, if appropriate, take testimony. Gabe may have a little more color on this if you need more.
Sure. So this is unusual in the sense that nobody necessarily did anything wrong, but it's all operating in a kind of administrative blind spot for you as a board. Your general rule is that license applicants who hold less than 10% of the shares of a corporation are not subject to the same scrutiny that larger shareholders are, those being the background check and the check for affiliations among the people. What's odd about this is that the request is to bring in so many small shareholders that a majority of all the shares would belong to people who had not been inquired into in any way. You wouldn't have any background checks on them. You wouldn't know if they were affiliated. And because there's no affiliations check on them, if you pursue that as a policy, what you'd wind up with is a system. 80% shareholders who are affiliated could each take a 9.9% stake, completely evade the scrutiny the General Assembly intended of their affiliations and their backgrounds, and yet walk away with a license. So basically, it's a loophole. I want to be very clear. There's no indication that Woolly Mammoth intended to exploit that loophole, but it fits into this very unusual case where, were you to approve what we have today, you would approve it without any knowledge of a majority of the shareholders or whether they have anything to do with one another. So that is why licensing is sort of thing is saying maybe you want to kick it down the road. defer action. The license itself under the APA would remain in full force and effect. No decision would be made yet on the ownership change. And then the next logical thing for you to do would be to ask licensing to send all of the minor shareholders the affiliations paperwork that the larger shareholders usually get, screen it to make sure they don't have anything to do with one another. If any two or more do have to do with one another, they should be background checked because they're constructively more than 10%. So weird how we got here, but it's just that nobody anticipated during your rule and policy making that this many minor shareholders might come along. And so you're kind of in this.
Would that affiliations paperwork tell us not only if multiple investors in this business are connected, but also if they're connected to multiple other?
It should.
Businesses?
It's like a 3-page written interview almost, where one makes declarations about, I have family members in the industry. So it should hit all the points that concern you. And of course, in some cases where it gets really complicated, you've just had evidentiary hearings. You've just said, guys, can you please get on a call, swear yourselves in, and we'll just get information from you. So again, I don't want any suggestion of a problem here that's unusual, just that it's very difficult with this kind of transfer for you to do your due diligence as a board.
And if we table it for now, these folks can still operate, right? We're not preventing.
They can. They shouldn't consummate the change.
Okay.
Until it's approved, but they can still.
So theoretically, if they need this change in order to continue operating and we delay the approval of it, they may not be able to operate. But
there's a lot I don't know about their business plans.
Right.
You could, in concept, you could, if you want to just kind of accept the large blind spot, you could approve it today. It's not illegal to do that. You could also grant a delegate authority to Melissa and the licensing division, once they get the forms back, if they raise no interesting issue, to just go ahead and administratively approve the change. Or you could have a special meeting, although I think we were just asked to stop doing that.
Okay.
I think I'd like to know more.
Yeah, I think I would too. I mean, essentially what you're saying, just to break it down, you said it very eloquently, but if, for instance, two of these 8% owners were husband and wife, cohabitated, shared all their, had a joint bank account, they would exceed, we would consider that an affiliation that would,
16%.
16%, and then we'd require them both to get background checked. So yeah, I think it's important for us to make sure that that's all right. But again, I also am fine leaving it to the staff to do that affiliations work, because they can happen a lot more quickly than us waiting till our next meeting, calling them in. I think if there is an affiliations issue, we should certainly hold that meeting and bring them in, the people under question.
Or if there's reluctance to fill out that information.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you could, depends on how much you want to delegate. You could delegate to the executive director and the licensing division authority to decide whether or not there's a material issue of fact for you to take up. And if they don't think there is, they could just administratively approve it. And if there's any question whatsoever in their minds, they could just either ask you to have a special meeting or to hold it for your next meeting.
Right. I feel confident in the staff's ability to kind of navigate the affiliations question, or at least to navigate the information collection and present it to us if there is a potential problem.
Okay, then let me just play with one thing here and it should be good.
And that can happen more quickly than us waiting till our next evidentiary hearing on the.
Well, either way, the first step would be Melissa and team sending out and collecting replies to the affiliations worksheet. So however long that takes, hopefully it's a quick turnaround. And then, yes, if based on the findings, there is a need or more, we'll schedule the affiliations hearing with all of you. And the timing of that will be what that would be.
All right, well, is there a motion to approve this, or to, let's see.
Yeah, well, it's
approve subject to appropriate affiliations
So let's try it this way.
Yeah, let's see. I don't know that that's.
Hang on one sec.
I want to make sure I understand the conversation we're having. We're not approving, we're tabling until they complete the affiliations paperwork, and we're giving the staff the authority to determine whether or not there's anything in that paperwork that needs to come back to the board, right?
Yes.
I think this is right. I move that the board table the application of Woolly Mammoth Cannabis, and further that we ask the licensing division to obtain affiliations declarations from all shareholders. And if any affiliated shareholders would hold more than 10% interest, that those shareholders be background checked. Further, the executive director and the licensing director are authorized to approve the change if they conclude that there's no issue of material fact for the board to determine.
That sounds pretty good.
And I'll second.
Yeah. Okay. Any further discussion? I
No.
think that was the right motion.
Yes.
Uh,
It's really, literally hot off the press.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, thank you. Next on our list, you're looking at 8 retailers who have requested to add the new medical endorsement at the point of submitting their ordinary and timely license renewal applications. The licensing team recommends that the board approve issuance of the medical endorsements to these licensees. Just a quick reminder that our rules require enhanced training for patient-facing retail staff. Consequently, there will be a small delay before new endorsees will have staff that's trained to transact sales to medical patients. The training module should be ready in about a month.
December 3rd.
December 3rd. Yep.
So more folks that were on time, and this time more information given to us.
Do we know if people pass that, the training, if they will have the information that day? Do we know anything about how quickly the final is?
I believe so. Yes. So, as soon as you pass the test, which I think it's graded immediately, because I think it's a multiple choice test.
Yeah.
As long as one of those trainees is available
Produce the paper that they passed.
yeah, that they can start operating. These folks know that they're not allowed to operate as a medically endorsed retailer, as in, make tax-free sales and sell medical products until that, right?
Yes, and they will get a written letter from our licensing team at the end of this meeting,
Okay.
assuming there is an
10%
approval, again,
down.
clarifying that they're not yet allowed to transact
Okay,
until.
great. Okay. Any other questions for Olga or Gabe or Melissa on this? No. All right. Is there a motion to approve these applications?
I move that the board approve the renewals and endorsements recommended, with the reminder that staff must complete the required training before consummating medical sales.
And I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Next, you're looking at 2 businesses seeking to amend their retail licenses mid-cycle to add a medical endorsement. And the licensing team recommends that the board approve the issuance of the endorsed licenses. Again, same reminder that enhanced training for patient-facing retail staff is required and currently not yet available. So these businesses, if approved, will need to wait until that training is available.
So I heard you say on the last group that they were all submitted on time.
Mhm.
Do we know if these folks submitted their last renewal on time?
Yes, we have checked that they have not been late on their
Okay.
renewals. That's correct.
Great. And they're otherwise in
In good standing.
continuous good standing? Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay, great. All right.
I move that the board approve the endorsements requested, again with a reminder that staff must obtain training before consummating medical sales.
And I will second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Let's see, next here, slightly different matter. An executive amendment before you related to a change of location outside of the normal renewal period. So the applicant here wants to change the location of their manufacturing license. The licensee is leaving their current site and intends to do their manufacturing on the site of their cultivation facility in West Charleston. They're moving out of Derby. The West Charleston location has already secured a passing site visit from our team. There is no LCC for West Charleston, and our licensing division recommends an approval.
Any questions about this?
Mhm.
Is there a motion to approve?
I move that the board approve the amendment of the license of Urban Herban LLC for the purpose of authorizing operation at a change of location.
No, second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay, thank you. Next. So here we have an expired application, renewal application that falls within the 60-day redemption period permitted under Rule 115.2D as amended in July. The board has been shared on the materials related to this licensee. As a quick summary, since we have a lot of slides today, this applicant was, first, they were late on their 2024 renewal. And then in 2025, they did not meet necessary requirements for a timely renewal. And the license expired on October 23rd of this year. The applicant here cooperated fully in season operations as directed by our compliance team. Since their license expiration, they were successful in providing our team with the missing documentation to qualify for renewal administratively. And our staff recommends that the board exercises its discretion in accepting and reviving this license. And if it is reinstated, the expiration date will remain October 23rd.
Okay. Any questions?
Nope.
Nope.
Is there a motion to reinstate this expired license?
I move that the board approve the reinstatement of Snow Farm LLC as recommended by staff, issuance subject to the usual contingencies.
No, second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Next here. So here we are looking at two late and now complete renewal applications. The supplemental materials have been provided to the board ahead of this meeting. For some additional context, Big House Cultivation is operated by the principals of retailer Graham Central, which has had 3 late renewals. And this is Amanana's second late renewal application. And under the Rule 115.2, the late applications can be accepted or rejected by the board at the board's discretion.
So these principals and owners from Big House, this is effectively their 4th late renewal.
Yes.
Not necessarily for this license, but in total for all the licenses that they own.
Yep.
So I don't want to, again, sound like a broken record, but I am going to renew my comments from our last meeting where we dealt with Graham Central's license, the retail license, that, it is not just disrespectful to our staff to make people chase them down, to make our staff chase you down with endless phone calls. I mean, we get a record of all of the contacts that have been made. And it just feels like it's a waste of our resources to continuously chase people down like this.
I take hardly any accountability in the narratives that were provided.
This one, I actually understand that there were some extenuating circumstances,
Sure.
but it's it is part of a pattern, it's
Exactly.
just, yeah.
I'm losing my patience too.
I'd also like to point out that we had how many people do it on time?
70, 80.
That to me it really is disrespectful to these other licensees as well. We have historically offered leniency given the complexity of this industry, but we are going to be at some point undermining our own credibility as a licensing board if we just keep rubber stamping renewals that are late 4 times, or 5 times, whenever, it's just it is, I'm right there where it's just like, maybe we just don't renew this one.
And I've been wondering if maybe there's a time at which, like, maybe it's the first of the year that we maybe part of our board meeting is a reminder of what's required for renewal, what the timeline is. And then from there we say, we've given enough indication that this is the direction that we're going. We would have discussed it at 4 meetings at that point, right? And we can set it real clear. Yes. Well, yes, but definitely in earnest in the last 2, right? So yeah, I would go either way, but I always like to have like a, this is the reset. This is the new expectation sort of moment.
Okay. No, I mean, I think that is true. Putting people on notice is an important part of kind of our way we operate here. Okay. Is there a motion to approve these 2 late renewals?
I move that the board accept the late applications pursuant to Rule 1.15.2B and approve the renewal. Further, that we warn principals of both establishments that we will presumptively deny any future request to file late under Rule 1.15.2B.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 All right, moving on. Okay, so this one here, the retailer has failed to submit a timely renewal application, but with their late application, which is now complete, so it is a late and complete, they also requested to add a medical endorsement. The licensing team believes that the untimely filings are not indicative of proper preparation to meet the heightened responsibilities associated with medical sales. If the board agrees, licensing recommends that the board accept the late application to renew, but dismiss the section concerning medical use eligibility and direct the establishment to apply to amend its license to add the endorsement after it has demonstrated 6 months of orderly operation.
So this, I think, is a time where we should talk about what we believe we meant when we wrote our Rule 1.7.1 about qualifications for receiving medical use endorsement. I have it up here. I mean, let me just back up 1 second, which is, when we put forward the medical use endorsement concept to the legislature, there is a lot of debate and concern that a medical use endorsement would become an end run around potency caps, and it would be a tax avoidance mechanism. And they drafted the law, and we subsequently drafted Rule 1.7.1A, or just the whole rule, to minimize that risk. And so, we wrote, demonstrate at least 6 months of continuous compliant operation in good standing and scrupulous record keeping and tax compliance. So we have never talked about what we mean by continuous compliant operation in good standing. Is that no violations? Is it no letters of warning? Is it compliance with the corrective action plan? Is it filing a late application? So I think this is
Yeah, so I would agree that it's not having any outstanding compliance issues, really.
Right.
But then also I think timeliness is part of that.
Okay.
Me too.
I think I read that some people have letters of warning that I think are really somewhat edge cases, and I think compliance is not going to flag like non-egregious letters of warning for this. I don't know if that applies to higher elevation, but it does seem like filing on time, respecting that deadline and those filing requirements is one of those things that not just the legislature, but we need to be very serious about, because if, people aren't filing their tax documents on time or not record keeping properly for these sales, then the legislature is going to take this thing away from everyone very quickly.
Agreed.
And I think we've established that if not all, most of the other folks that have applied for an MUE have been on time, or have a
History.
least, have a history of timeliness, or at least in the most recent were timely, unless there was something that was out of, like, legitimately out of their control.
Yeah, out of 10 retailers who you have recently approved, there was just one who had a late application a year ago, and it had a challenge that I think had to do something with Department of Fire Safety delays. I believe that's
And this business will have an opportunity in 6 months to still achieve this.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm fine with that. So is there a motion to, well, you probably have it.
I do. I think you're still supposed to call for it.
Okay,
but-
is there a motion to approve this underlying or accept and approve the underlying retail application and delay kind of consideration of the medical use endorsement for 6 months?
I move that the board approve the renewal for Higher Elevation in its current form, but dismiss the accompanying request for medical use endorsement, provided that the applicant may renew its request for endorsement once it can demonstrate 6 months of orderly and compliant operation.
Oh, second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 okay. Another one. This one is very similar to the last slide, except the medical endorsement filings for this retailer were not complete at the time of the submission of their renewal paperwork. As of today, actually, the license has become complete. If this explanation is satisfactory to the board, staff recommends that their requirements to renew the retail license are satisfied, although late. However, the establishment has not completed steps necessary to be eligible for a medical endorsement, since they have not yet established medical use endorsement SOPs and policies, and the site has not passed an inspection to validate their ability to operate with the endorsement. So again, if the board elects to renew the retail license, it will have to dismiss the section concerning medical use eligibility and direct the establishment to apply to amend its license at a later date after 6 months of orderly operation.
This one for the medical use endorsement is not even a really close case for me. No history of tax compliance. I mean, they're in compliance as of today, but no continuous history of tax compliance, insurance, banking, So I think for me, the medical use endorsement for this one needs to wait until we can demonstrate at least 6 months of continuous compliance. But how do we feel about the underlying license? Because there was a lot there and it really was under the wire. But it was under the wire, so.
Yeah, I mean, the under the wire part is what we've been allowing, right? Like-
Yes.
Their first renewal?
Yes.
So in light of just kind of our history on this, I'm inclined to approve the underlying retail renewal, but delay consideration of the medical use endorsement.
Yeah.
Okay. Is there a motion for that?
I move that the board approve the renewal of Winterland Hayes LLC in its current form, but dismiss the accompanying request for medical use endorsement.
Oh, second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, one more here. So this is a late renewal submission that is requesting an extension in order to complete outstanding requirements. The narrative is on file and it's been shared with the board ahead of the meeting. Currently, this licensee is waiting on updated insurance documentation. It is their first renewal submission. And the licensing staff believes that continuing this licensee until the next regularly scheduled board meeting on November 19 will result in the licensee becoming complete in order to be renewed. Thus, the licensing team supports this licensee's request.
Okay. Any questions for Olga about this one? Or Gabe or Melissa?
Just the same comments we've been circling in the last 10 minutes.
Is there a motion to approve this request for a continuance.
I move that the board extend the license in force until our next regular meeting.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. I think I have one more matter here. And this relates to the special permit that was issued at a last regular meeting. As the incoming operator needs a little bit more time to go through the licensing process, and Gabe can add a little color because he's most involved in the matter.
This one should be simple. Within your discretion to extend these permits. We try to write them very narrowly, of course, in part because they're new and they're going to people that aren't necessarily used to the industry. This one is held by the surviving brother of a deceased former licensee. He's out on the West Coast trying to get things together, and I think the material problem is he was trying in good faith, but he's new to our system and he log in and whatnot that slowed him down. I think if licensing has different information, I welcome correction, but I think he's acted very conscientiously and has just hit a couple of roadblocks that might require that he have another bit of time.
The term of the existing permit, was that selected by him or was it selected by us?
It was selected by us, and it was selected with it in mind that this was a first as narrowly as we could. So what licensing and we are recommending is that the current November 10 expiration be extended to December 19. And they're pretty confident that'll be the last time we have to do that.
Okay. Any questions about this one?
No.
Is there a motion to extend the special permit?
I move that the board amend the special permit issued to Ted Lizzie relative to the operation of Cognizant Sparks LLC by striking the expiration date of November 10th, 2025 and substituting the date of December 19th, 2025.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, and that's all we got for you today.
Thank you so much.
Okay. Thank you, Olga.
Yes, and the team.
And the whole team. Sorry. Yes, that was an incredible amount of work, both on the compliance side and the licensing side. All right. I'm just looking at the agenda and we don't have anything left. We ran significantly over today. My apologies for that. But I will adjourn the meeting.